In this video, we will summarize the main points and concepts described in the book called The World According to Xi, written by British scholar Kerry. Despite his experience of work in China, Professor Brown uses the Western view of the world in the process of answering the question, who is the current leader of People's Republic of China, what are his goals, and how he sees the future of his country. We speak about the Chinese leaders having a form of Chinese power. The hardest thing to understand about the Chinese leadership is that it is an attribute of a system rather than of a person. The person plays the tune, but others have all contributed to its composition. Thus, power that Xi has no sense outside the context. In order to answer the major questions, we need to examine the Chinese leadership from different perspectives. First, from the personal level of values of the current leader. Second, from the bureaucratic level of the party as an aggregate of power. Then, we will consider the global dimension of Xi as a leader of a immensely significant country. Lastly, there will be presented some assumptions about the future of Chinese leadership. In essence, the book of Kerry aims to give a halfway report of Xi Jinping's presidency. To understand Xi, we need to look through his personal story. The author mentions the term hagiography, the religious writing about the holy people who struggle and suffer for glory. The concept of hagiography is widely used for promoting Xi Jinping as a man of the people or peasant emperor. The Xi's story is a part of the Communist Party legitimacy. He is an example for everybody. The claim is that he earned the right to occupy the high position he now holds by labor and resilience. He struggled for survival during the Cultural Revolution. He worked hard in one of the poorest provinces and developed this territory. It is possible to argue that in the system of one-party domination, nobody has a choice of career. Nevertheless, Xi had deliberately chosen the path of the politician in the party. First, he started the military career, but changed it to political one. Second, the famous fact of exams attempts speaks for itself. Xi Jinping tried to become the member of the party 10 times till he succeeded. However, it is not the reason why they call him the party man. The basis for Brown's argument is a comparison of Xi Jinping with other key Chinese leaders. China of today is a creation of Mao and Deng. Mao, who through use of violence and force gained power for communists, and Deng, who reshaped the country and party's strategy for China to become sustainable. Xi did not construct this historical narrative. He simply occupies a place within it. Xi's real skill is the performance, rather than the creation of his own work.
To understand Xi's values, we need to look at the situation in which Xi appeared to be at the beginning of his career. Did he have a choice where to go, or in what to believe? The answer is no. Party was, and is, the only one choice. Xi tends to accept the ideology of the party. However, we cannot be sure about his real opinion. Xi Jinping's thought includes several aspects. First of all, it is so-called China Dream, which implies that China has a historic mission towards regeneration and the Chinese Renaissance. The second important aspect is reform. It is a lovely word for the Chinese people, since the last 4 decades were a perpetual state of dissatisfaction in Chinese history. The problem emerged when the market was created. State tried to restrain everything, while market to liberate. Only in 2013 on plenum, the necessity of market was commonly acknowledged. Another striking thing about the plenum 2013 was that it contained 60 policy initiatives. Thirdly, among initiatives we can highlight the key word, which is comprehensiveness, which featured in a party slogan formalized in 2016. The full comprehensiveness. They are to comprehensively build a moderately prosperous society. The function of party here in bringing about the great, stable, prosperous nation guided by socialist equity and notions of justice and balance. To comprehensively deepen reform. Xi's ideas have not contested any previous changes, actually Deng's one, although they have attempted to build on and develop them. But on the most important area of reform, that of political reform, there has been almost nothing. That brings us to the conclusion that Xi Jinping thought is most an affirmation or a recommitment to change, but not an innovation. To comprehensively govern the nation according to law. China has shifted from rule by man in Maoist era to rule of law. And law, like a reform, is a good word in China. And it does not involve copying the Western notion of rule by law. There is rule by the party, and no room for any competitors. To comprehensively govern the party. Party building became one of the key responsibilities, with new ideological messages intensively produced and promoted, and training at party schools to avoid dominance of corruption, poor conduct, and officials' impunity.
An important dimension to look at China is international relations. According to the author of the book, the current Chinese foreign policy can be called globalization with Chinese characteristics. On the one hand, the current president of China, Xi Jinping, wants to tell the Chinese story better. He believes it was misunderstood, and he wants the Chinese story to be recognized and understood by the other countries. On the other hand, China desires to be a world power. And one example to that might be the Belt Road Initiative. China no longer poses itself as a victim. The country has been trying to propose a new world order that will be based on values that China seems to espouse. It wants to be admired. On the other hand, there are 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. These basically claim that the sovereignty of every country is to be respected. This new position of China is actually the reason why the author of the book calls the Chinese foreign policy schizophrenic. The shift from the small marginal perception of China 70 years ago to this new world center in the present day, and this balance between the world dominant and the friend to every country is what makes the Chinese foreign policy special. A political reform in China will only be possible when the leaders of the country understand that the political situation harms the economy of the country. According to the words of Deng Xiaoping, when you open the windows to let fresh air in, flies come in too. That means that all the possible benefits of liberalization of the country are still worse for it than the unity and stability provided by the country. Talking about this reform, there are 3 things that I find important to mention. First of all, it is unclear what the opinion of the president on the matter is. Secondly, maybe the right time has just not come for the reform. Finally, it is unclear whether there is a consensus on this matter within the party itself. However, the provision of unity and stability are one of the main aims of the legislature of the country. It fights any sort of political activism outside the party. However, it supports middle class and economic prosperity. The final aspect I'd like to discuss is the policy-making process. Despite being called the human-faced party for people, the Chinese Communist Party is still ruled by just some people. Obviously, Xi Jinping is the chairman for everything. But apart from that, the people who rule China are his closest followers. Thus, the question occurs, is it possible that Xi Jinping, the man who fought corruption and who is extremely anti-networking, is actually engaged in those? And he created the hierarchy of the rulers, which he himself found best. The possibility of that is highlighted by the author of the book, but not stated explicitly.
Values and objectives of Xi's power. In the last chapter of the book, the author talks about the values and objectives of Xi's power. Now, one of the main objectives of the party is to articulate a set of values and a culture that conveys the country confidence and standing. The core socialist values mix notions of harmony, tolerance, and responsibility together with those of justice, legality, and order. Unity in all is one of the important aspects. China should have a unifying culture, and an ethical entity should become the place where social and civic values would mix. The government's role under the party is to do the balancing and measuring, to make sure things are assembling correctly and the machine works. Innovative China. The main challenges on the way to creating an ideal society defined by Xi in 2017 are unbalanced and inadequate development, a deficit in innovation, a vulnerable natural environment, poverty, demographics and health. The country presenting China dream can appear by 2035. Both balanced relationships between humans and harmony with nature are important parts of ideal society concept. Balanced relationships between humans refers to well-governed society with revealed inequality, tolerance, justice. Harmony with nature refers to cleaned up environment, access to clean water and good quality food. According to Xi's abstract dreams, China will be a global leader and all dreams come true. Unity and greater international respect and credibility of China.